Greetings and various assorted salutations. Today's episode in the course development journal, I guess, is talking about setting up the learning management system. So the school district I work for has announced that formally we will be starting to use Canvas in fall 2021. For this semester, fall 2020, we have access to Canvas, but we're not required to use it unless in key sections. I teach history, which, a lot of people don't consider that very important. I would argue otherwise, but anyways, I'm not required to use Canvas at this early stage, but I'm going to. And the reason for that is relatively simple. It's going to become the standard, that much is clear. And while I'm more familiar with, say, Google Classroom, and I know a lot of my students are, Canvas has a lot of features that will be very nice, and, well, it's integrated with our school system gradebook stuff, so that as long as I can set that up correctly, my life will be easier in the long run with regards to that, because I shouldn't be focusing on getting things from the online learning system into the gradebook. I should be focusing on the content, meeting the students' learning needs, stuff like that. So anyways, I'm not going to talk much about Canvas itself because that's not really relevant, and that's not something I feel like I need to talk about a whole lot here. Instead, what I'm going to be talking about is kind of some of the information I got out of student surveys and in talking with other teachers. There was a general dislike of Canvas. I think the big problem with that is it was a rushed launch for some teachers. Essentially, we were given the option of we could do it our own way or we could use Canvas that was built into the school system. I think the struggle with that is if you've never used Canvas before, it's not an easy or instant transition. And especially for a lot of teachers who didn't have a solution set up right at the start, going into it cold was not easy. Let's put it that way. So already I've got a couple factors to consider then. Is one, Canvas is perceived as cumbersome, and it is perceived as being rather inelegant and not very easy to use. These are perceptions. They have nothing to do with the actual product itself. And from what I study, I studied memory when I was in college, perception can be very powerful, sometimes overpowering reality in some cases. So then the challenge here is I want to use Canvas because it appears to be the future, but I know that the past of Canvas within our local student population is not very for it or excited about it, which is understandable. Chaos has not been friendly these past few months. But I think the key thing here with using a learning management system is that in the grand scheme of things, as long as it works, every program has its advantages and disadvantages, and programs, what we use changes over time. This is not like the historical periods where pretty much typewriters and whatnot, technology didn't change a whole lot for the average person. With modern day technology, it's changing all the time. So you really have to learn how to learn different systems. And so I have to consider when I'm designing my material, how can I make sure that it is the content students are focusing on, not the method of delivery. Because the method of delivery is important, but it should not be the focus of one's education. So to counteract bad perceptions of Canvas, to make my life easier, to make the students' lives easier, what I need to do is create a operations manual on how to do things in my class. One of the things I've discovered with teaching, especially a lot of subjects, is you have to treat your course as a world unto itself. If you want students to do something a certain way, teach them how to do it. Instruct them the correct norms and formatting you want them to use, and they'll use it. Students are incredibly adaptable in that regard if you make sure that what you're trying to get them to do has clear-cut steps and demonstrations. So my YouTube channel will be useful in that regard. But an operations manual, I'm thinking a PDF file, is definitely going to be very important. And designing that operations manual, it's going to need several things. First off, it needs to be relatively short, so that you can, and well organized, so that you can quickly flip through and find what you need to do based on what's going on. That way, when a student sends me a problem along and I'm like, oh, I know the operations manual can fix this, I can direct them to the exact section in there to fix and address their problem. Additionally, in the operations manual, it needs to have how you access Canvas, obviously, how the student logs in, what it should look like, that kind of thing. How to read the Canvas system, how to read things. The next thing it should have is how to turn stuff in. Because a lot of students, we like to think that students are obsessed with this fascination and knowledge, that they're all scholars in scholarly pursuits. Not all of them are that way, and at the end of the day, they want to make sure they get stuff turned in so they get credit. And so you want to make sure that the material has a clear-cut way of turning stuff in. And to do that, I need to focus on making sure that when I design assignments, I design a template, and then use that template and switch out the content. Some people might argue that's a bit boring, or it's not very imaginative, but I'm focused on trying to get the students on learning material. The standards and the pacing guide that I have don't talk about you need to make sure you diversify how they access the content. They say, do they learn this content? They don't ask how. And so the how is up to me, and I figure standardization, simplicity, applying Occam's razor and, the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, is important, because it's not about how you get on the content, it's about the content itself. So we might as well streamline that. Additionally, after how to access, how to turn stuff in, I need to talk about expectations. What this basically means is we're going to make things work. This is how things are going to work. This is what I expect of the students. This is what the students can expect of me. And then another important part of the operations manual is how to get help. I need to make sure that the help channels are wide open and easy to use and relatively accessible. This is not like a department store where they move customer service to the back of the store, so you have to trudge through the whole thing to get to it and thus decrease customer service questions. My goal is to decrease customer service questions by actually being helpful and addressing the problems. Ideally, and as I saw with COVID-19 stuff, my operations manual for Google Classroom simplified a lot of things. It took the most common problems and said, this is how you fix this. And a lot of people just started using it that way. So how to get help is important. The other thing that I need to emphasize in the operations manual, I need to emphasize it in the syllabus and all throughout the course, is the emphasis on communication. I cannot fix problems I do not know about. And here's how to tell me about those problems. You hear all kinds of interesting stories and circumstances from students. Most of them are fairly genuine issues. But if I don't know about a problem, I can't fix a problem. That's one of the important things to consider with everything. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at for the operations manual. And so the learning system in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter. It's more about me taking the time as the teacher to make sure that the system, whatever it is relatively easy to use, straightforward, and they're trained on how to use it. And then it's just a matter of, okay, I need to learn this content. I already know how to get into it. I know how to process it. Now I can just focus on the content itself, which in the end goal, that is the purpose of history courses, is it's learning about history, not talking about how to access it, not talking about those things. that's why I kind of dumped this stuff in here. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling, but that's kind of the end of this thing here. Anyways, I guess until later.
Yeah.